feelings. Well, Trump is calling Cummings a brutal bully and says no human being would want to live in Baltimore. Correspondent Boris Sanchez has.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. And we are being broadcast live on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. Now, if you are watching me via YouTube, please make sure you do hit that like and subscribe button, of course. And I'm going to try to do what the paranormal portal peoples do, and that is keep an eye on my chats at the same time as I am doing my show. And I must say that Brent and Don are actually just, they're the pros. And thanks for the shout out, guys. You're awesome. And yep, they're just freaking awesome. That's all there is to it. So I do have a podcast. I need to upload some more stuff to it. See, there's fresh stuff for Monday morning. Yuppers. But yeah, it's the Spaces Between with Paisley Wild, and it can be found in iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and any place that you do get your podcast streaming from. So, of course, no matter how you are listening to me, please make sure you say hi, say hello. I appreciate the comments that came in last night. That was awesome. I appreciate it. I love the feedback, you guys. And just I want to thank you again for joining me here on my personal spiritual journey. And I hope you want to keep coming back and learning with me. So anytime you send me an email or a message, I just appreciate it. And I take that information in and try to adjust my show accordingly. What do people want to hear? So also, if you want to support the show just a bit more, I do have an Etsy store, and there's, of course, going to be a link in the show comments, but it's www.etsy.com/shop/Monarch MTN Studio. That's Monarch Mountain Studio. So that's me, because I can see the Monarch Mountains, the tops of them anyways, from my front yard. Beautiful place. The call line is open if you wanted to holler at me. The number to call is 213-233-3998, or if you're across the pond in the UK, that number is 44203-393-2871. So thank you again for joining me. And wasn't quite sure what to talk about tonight. I got a little thrown off my stride last weekend. Just kind of things didn't go as smoothly as I wanted to, and but I had a great guest. Thank you, Gidget, again for joining us. And so my material that I used last night was potentially possibly for last weekend, but I think it filled the spaces. Funny. Just because we were talking about the different traditions, and I think it's really important to know what they are before you really figure out what your path is, because there are just so many different ways to be a practicing witch or practicing pagan, or both, that it's not just follow the Celtics, follow the Greek gods, follow the Norse deities, or the Hindu, or any of those. There's so many different choices. Or you could be like me, be an eclectic and pull a little bit from everybody else. Many musings, that number, here, I'll see if I can paste it in there real quick. It is 213-233-3998. And boop boop, call line's open. And if I don't answer right away, just say hello in the chat, and I'll try to scroll up and hit the right button. So tonight I wanted to talk about what is an empath. A friend of mine suggested that as a good show topic, and you know what, she's right. Because I do see people talk about being an empath all the time, or energy vampires or anything like that. And there's some truth to the energy vampire thing. It's not fangs. Sorry, guys. It's not lewd and lascivious behavior. It is just they suck the life out of you. That's all. The energy. But you know, what are empaths? What does that mean? So people often do lump introverts, empaths, and just sensitive type people into one category. Should they be? Well, kind of. They are related, but they're not necessarily all the same thing. And you can be more than one of those things. So what are the differences? We'll start off. Introverts are people who are generally kind of shy or a little bit asocial on the surface. But many are actually love spending time with friends, especially close friends. But they tend to be drained very quickly in social situations, like crowds, going to the movies, parades, or just big events, that kind of a thing. And they may need some alone time later to recharge. And that's why introverts often prefer to stay in or spend time with close friends, or just one or two people rather than a big group. The introverts are generally going to be, I suppose you'd call us the wallflowers. Yes, I am technically an introvert. You can't tell here. And they've done some research on introvert versus extrovert. And they found that being an introvert is actually genetic, and it involves how the brain processes dopamine, which is the reward chemical, the feel-good stuff. And so people who are born as introverts don't generally feel as rewarded by external stimuli, like the, hey, good jobs, or parties, or just random chatting. And so as a result, they tend to get pretty worn out by those things really quickly. And I can't say as I blame them at all. And a lot of those introverts tend to find more meaning in doing quiet activities like reading or creative hobbies, and meditation, and just some of those more individual sports or activities that don't require a lot of people. So not a lot of just drama. Yeah, we don't like drama. And no, not really party people. So if you're a highly sensitive person, you are probably going to be an introvert. And in theory, highly sensitive people, there's actually a label or an acronym. It's HSP, highly sensitive people, or person. They're also introverts, which is why there's often some confusion between the highly sensitive and the introvert. And you can be an introvert without being highly sensitive, believe it or not. So you would look like you're not quite as connected with people or in tune with people. And certain violent or situations like or simulation, like time constraints, violent movie scenes, repetitive noises, that kind of thing, can just really drive you insane. And according to statistics, can be whatever you want to make of them, but they do say about 30 to 50% of the population is an introvert. And introverts can be either highly sensitive or an empath or not. You don't have to be. And because extroverts are studied extensively because of your type A personalities. Introversion is actually well studied as well, just because it's the other side of the coin. And it's how do you separate it? It's just, seriously, it is the other side of the coin from an extrovert. So empaths then are people who are extremely aware of the emotions of those around them. And to an empath, this doesn't feel like they notice others' feelings necessarily. They just experience them. Sometimes they absorb them, or if it's just like any other muscle that you might need to exercise. If you train yourself, you can consciously extend yourself out to observe or soak in those emotions and maybe target them somewhat. But generally, it's just you're feeling it. And sometimes you can even have physical symptoms of being an empath. You can actually feel those symptoms. And if there's people around you that are having just really strong emotions, like stress or panic attacks or depression, chronic fatigue, that kind of thing. And sometimes the whole thing really defies medical science for the most part. It's not something that science really gives a lot of credence to, but at the same time, it's a legit thing. Yes, really is. So for an empath, on the one hand, it's a blessing. You kind of know what's going on around you. You get that intuitive feeling is stronger, and you're able to tune into the people around you better. But at the same time, it's a curse, because if you haven't conditioned yourself to have some sort of blocking or protective barriers to your mind and your thought processes, it can be just overwhelming. And so it can take you, years and time and energy to actually turn it off and to rein that ability to soak in those emotions at will. That way you can handle being around crowds or being around noisy, obnoxious people, like in-laws could be one of those categories, or your significant others, less friendly friends that you don't want to spend time around with. Not that I have that problem in my life, but I know others who do. Or even your own family if you don't want to deal with them. You have to be able to turn that off. So similar to highly sensitive people, empaths do have a very highly tuned sense of feeling emotion, very, very strong intuitive abilities, and generally they do need some time to reboot, to reset, and to recover from being in those loud, noisy situations. Excuse me. So empaths can actually be an introvert or an extrovert. They don't have to be just the introvert. And they generally absorb those emotions in addition to picking up on various physical cues that people do. And often it's very unconscious. You're cluing into someone's having a certain behavior or body posture. You can kind of glean some understanding of what they might be feeling. Now, most empaths are very likely to be the highly sensitive people types, because they are absorbing that emotion. So what are highly sensitive people? Well, often they're very misunderstood, and they often get labeled with the word sensitive. You're so sensitive. And, we've heard this before. Oh, you're just too sensitive. You need to just let it go. Sometimes you can't turn that off. Just like those with other mental health issues, often you don't have any control over it. It's just a thing. Like OCD is just a thing. You often cannot control it. If you have to touch every doorknob to make sure they're locked before you go somewhere, that's part of your process, part of your routine, you have to do it. It's very similar. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's good to know that your door's locked, but it is a thing to deal with. And people often just don't understand it, so they give those who are highly sensitive kind of, it makes life a little harder for them. So it means basically, if you are one, you process more information around you than most other people do. Think of it as situational awareness. If you are highly sensitive and you have situational awareness, you're less likely to be taken by surprise. And you pick up on people up to no good, perhaps better. So you may end up in a law enforcement type career because of it. Highly sensitive folks, they process things deeply and they notice connections that other people don't notice. They can often be overwhelmed or overstimulated because you've got so much information coming into your brain that it's processing that you have a hard time turning it off. And you might notice small things or subtle things that others might not, like a paint texture or faint noises. My grandson just turned 2 and we went to his birthday party. It was fun. Cake and ice cream. 2 thumbs up. But one of the little girls there, very, very sensitive to trains. As soon as she hears one anywhere, she covers her ears. The rest of us might not know that there's a train, or it may be 20 miles away and we haven't heard the toot toot of the horn. But by golly, she sure could. And so she's highly sensitive to that particular noise. Now, highly sensitive folks are often in the same category as an empath. They would qualify an empath because they do feel emotions similar to empaths do. But at the same time, it's also, they're reading the body language more than an empath would. And because the highly sensitive person is picking up on all sensory input, not just the emotions coming from, people. The highly sensitive folks, they can be overwhelmed in situations with noisy crowds, where there's a fast pace, traffic, or just someplace where they have uncomfortable emotions to deal with. And it could be just really stressful. So they can be introverts or extroverts. And generally speaking, if you're highly sensitive, you are an empath. Not always, though. And I see in social media often people saying, oh, well, I'm an empath. Well, not necessarily. You may just be picking up on somebody else's energy. You may be just a highly sensitive person. That's all it is. Now, highly sensitive people may be, actually, they're doing research on empaths and highly sensitive people, and they may actually be the same thing. Just right now, they're set into 2 different categories. So, the opposite of an introvert is an extrovert. And extroverts, just so you know, tend to get their energy from social situations, and they have a big social battery. They get a real charge from being in a crowd and being the center of attention, and so they get a lot of satisfaction from being in that kind of an environment. Now, the opposite of being an empath or a highly sensitive person is often associated with narcissism. Even though it's not true, it's just because folks that are highly sensitive or empathic, and it comes with some pros and cons. The same thing is true for less sensitive people. Less sensitive people might not be as impacted by the noise and activity around them. Especially like in loud environments, demanding places, like work sites, industrial work sites, the military, that kind of thing. So they're not necessarily narcissistic or selfish. They're just not soaking up the same information as the highly sensitive folks are. So I'm going to stop right there for a moment. It looks like we have a caller. So, caller, hold on. Gotta make sure I hit the right button. You're on the air. Hello?
Yep, you hit the right button.
I hit the right button. Yay! How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I am good. And this is Many Musings, huh?
It is.
Yay! So what's new with you tonight?
That's a me. Well, I am calling in because of the empath topic.
Yes.
And you're 100% on key there with the what the empaths are and highly sensitive people. Yeah, we don't like to leave the house often.
No. I could be a homebody, maybe. I don't know. I'm online all the time, but yeah, it's hard to get out of the house sometimes. I don't want to go to the bar, for instance. I'm not young anymore. It's not real hey, let's go to the bar and hang out with people. It's just too noisy, too many people, too crowded. I am going to be just as happy hanging out at home and not doing anything. Or reading a book.
Oh, yeah, no. Bars are a big no. It's too much noise, too much movement, too many people, and it's usually too dark on top of everything else.
Yes, one more thing. Yeah. It's like, here, let's add
Yeah.
one more thing. So,
And then
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then, of course, you've usually got, if it's a club-type bar, you've got the loud music on top of it.
Loud music, and then as the alcohol flows, the hormones are set loose, and there's all those things to deal with, too. Yeah, it's an adventure. So, what do you do to protect yourself when you do go out into public?
I usually, like, just going to the grocery store, for example. I sit in my car and ground myself. I focus on that grounding, kind of like meditation. And I project almost like a bubble or a shield of white light on me before I go into anywhere.
Yeah. Do you wear any extra crystals or carry stones or anything like that to help keep you grounded and protect yourself just a little bit when you're in public like that?
I don't. Some people might find that helpful. I mean, I wear a ring that's a hematite ring, but that's about it.
Now, does that help you stay grounded when you wear it, or is that just your personal touchstone?
It's just a personal ring. I don't really. I don't have anything that I would carry with me. I mean, I have a lot of crystals that I keep here at home. I just don't take them out with me that often.
Okay. What is one thing you wish people would ask you as an empath or understood about you as an empath that you think that most people just don't get?
Did I want them to leave me alone?
Okay, that one's a given. You just leave me alone. Go away. Yes.
Just go away.
Go away. Yeah, leave me alone.
Wide berth.
Yeah. Now, for me, when I'm in a loud place and I'm trying to focus, I tend to mentally visualize static, like, TVs back before everything was so digitalized. If the channel wasn't there, there's that black and white static looking picture. That's generally what I'm visualizing in my brain when I go into some place that's overwhelming slightly, or I feel like I need to protect myself. That would be my wall, my block that I use. Now, is that something you think is effective?
That's for you, yeah.
Okay. Now, is that something that would be interfering with other people, or do you think they would just not notice it?
Most people aren't going to notice it.
Okay.
If I were to walk past you and you were doing that, I would hear your static.
Now, would you feel the urge to comment about it, or would you be like, all right, well, someone's weird, and just kind of walk on by? I'm curious.
No, I'd probably just walk on past you.
All right, that's the introvert coming out?
Probably, but to me, what am I going to gain by stopping and asking? Why do you say? I'm not going to stop and say, why do you sound like static?
What's now, as an empath, I know you pick up on many different emotions and feelings, and I don't want to talk about the really bad ones because you and I have chatted about that in the past. But more, what's some of the odder things you've experienced, I guess, besides listening to Don and Brett?
Well, that is pretty odd, but it's an enjoyable kind of odd. So.
I hear you.
No, I don't know what I would consider to be odd, to be. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
Um,
Or unusual, perhaps. Maybe that's a better word.
There's a lot of things you come into contact with that are neither good nor bad. They just are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people just are. You know, they're going through a store. You know, one is stressed out, and you could pick up on that stress. And and some empaths are also a little psychic, so you know why they're stressed, and that's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can pick up on why they're stressed, and or why they're angry or happy or pissy, or it just doesn't.
Any of those
it's just
fun emotions, right?
I end up getting way more information than I want off of people.
Mm-hmm.
So mine goes probably a little bit beyond just being empath, but I do that white light around me in like a bubble, just as a kind of like protective padding, to keep people out of my space.
Yep, you got your bubble wrap going on. You got it sometimes. There's a meme that I've seen around YouTube every so often, and not YouTube, social media. And it's somebody walking down the street, and they've got a hula hoop on this harness thing, and it says personal space boundary or something like that, and he's just on his phone as he's walking along, and there's like 2 feet of space on each side of him. Sometimes that's really what I need. Just leave me alone. I need my space. Other times, not so much. It's all good, so...
It's kind of really actually a good representation of the white light bubble.
Yeah. Just let's see. All right. What is a question that you would like to, or something you wish people who are trying to learn about being an empath, or think they're starting on this journey of being an empath? What's something that you would give for advice for someone new? Oh, shoot. Hold that thought, actually. We're about to go to break. So if you want to hang on, Many Musings, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my lovelies. We are back, and this is the Spaces Between, and we are listening and or chatting, I should say, with Many Musings. She's catching us on YouTube, and if you have any questions you want to ask her about being an empath, so I scrolled down in chat, and hey, I found something. So, my dear, I had just asked you, what's the one thing that you wish people who are just embarking on this path of being an empath you should keep in mind or should learn, or what are your thoughts?
How to keep themselves grounded. That's super important. How make sure you stay grounded, and so that you're able to tell what is yours and what is theirs.
Yes. Now, is there a way that you feel that works best to help yourself be grounded?
For me, I call it my mini meditations. I'll just close my eyes and listen to my own breathing, and pull my energy back to myself.
Okay.
I honestly think that's where they say, count to 10 when you get angry, comes from. It's like a mini meditation. You just listen to your own breathing, and it pulls you right back into yourself.
The in through the nose, out through the mouth, the repeating kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that works.
Awesome. All right, so a question came up in TFR chat. Enlightened Dawn would like to know if meditation helps.
Yeah.
Now,
meditation helps.
Do you do daily meditation or just as needed, or? Because I personally feel like I should be meditating more, just in general. But life is just busy. So how do you find time to meditate, to keep yourself grounded, or is it just you figure it out?
Well, here's the thing. I think everybody has a misconception of meditation. Meditation can be a 1-minute meditation, like I was just talking about, where you practice listening to your breathing, and you don't focus on anything but that sound. That is a form of meditation. I do that multiple times every day. I can do it like standing washing dishes. I'll stop for just a second, close my eyes, and listen to my breathing, and it rights me several times throughout the day.
Okay.
Those people that want to meditate longer, they can. I don't have that kind of time.
No. I wish I had that kind of time.
Discipline.
Discipline is a good one.
Time or discipline.
I'm a little ADD. So it's like squirrel. Oh, think, thought, black,
it's got to be
purple.
It doesn't have to be intrusive to the life.
Okay. I think that's what people assume meditation looks like, though, is that you're sitting in a quiet place, probably on a yoga mat, you've got incense going, you got calming music in the background, and you're able just to sit there and meditate for 15 minutes to a couple hours. And so meditation really isn't that. It's tuning into different things around you and clicking. I will often, if I'm having a hard time sleeping, I will tune into the sound of a fan, and that rhythm of the fan helps soothe me and calm me down and lets my mind release so I can relax and actually get some really good sleep then. So I sleep good with a fan often. Not always, but often. Let's see. Now, if you are an empath, or you find that you are, and you want to develop that skill more, or take that natural talent and hone it more, what do you do? How do you do it?
I don't know. I never had to develop it. It was always there.
Okay.
So I don't have a good answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
My question would be why.
Well, I could see like in a law enforcement situation where it might be good, especially if you're questioning someone who's been up to mischief. or an attorney or child care provider or doctor, the medical field, having some sort of empathic abilities to help tune into just maybe what their patients are feeling. I could see how that might be a benefit. Do you think like the medical field would be a good place for an empath? Or would that be too overwhelming?
I think it would depend on the individual. I think there would be a benefit to the patient if their caregiver were empathic. However, it might be detrimental to the caregiver.
Fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot of... I know hospitals, for instance, tend to be highly emotional places to go into. Even
extremely.
And I've bumped into people in the past that just, they're like, I'm sorry you're in the hospital. I'll send you a message. I'll call you, but I'm not coming to visit because I can't. I can't walk through those doors. Some of it's a fear, I think, but often I really think they're intuiting, or perhaps they are an empath, and they're picking up on some of those emotions or that energy.
Very possible.
Very possible. All right, so let me double check, make sure I'm not missing anything, because that's what I do. I really need a producer to be sitting in this seat so I can just do my own thing. Working on it. We'll see. Otherwise, I just get too scatterbrained and I forget things. So, is there anything else you wanted to mention, or are you good for now, or do you want to just...
No.
All right.
Nope, I'm good for now. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on your empath topic.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your 2 cents. I generally have 3
Oh.
cents, so
I do have an end of day tip for people that are empathic.
Okay.
That at the end of the day, take a salt bath.
Like an Epsom salt?
With sea salts or
sea
Epsom
salt.
salt.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just to help cleanse that
Yep.
any negative energy they may have soaked up over the course of the day, or just other people's energy in general?
Yes. The salt will help cleanse them from the day, and when you drain the tub, all that goes down and goes away, and you will sleep better.
Now, that's something I've told folks in the past, is when you take a bath or a shower or anything like that, you visualize it as a cleansing ritual. I mean, there's no reason not to. It's going to rinse away all that negativity anyways. And let it just flow out through the drain, so it's all gone. So
that's all done.
It's all gone.
But it does, for people that are empathic, they pick up a lot throughout the day. Even if they shield themselves and ground themselves, there's always residual energy that you bring home.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, keeping your house clean is important so that you don't have the internal chaos. And then, washing it away at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's definitely something freeing and cleansing about cleaning your house also. So it just feels good. All right, my dear. Well, I am going to go back to what I was reading here and talking about being an empath and some of the things. So thank you for calling in.
Well, Beans, I'll be listening.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bye.
Bye. All righty. So, as Many Musings was talking, basically empaths are those who feel other people's emotions very strongly often. They're not necessarily manifesting as a true psychic reading, although that's possible. It's generally you're just interacting with the physical world, and you pick up on different thoughts and feelings, even illnesses of people around you, perhaps even animals and just the world in general around you. So now there are some signs that you may be an empath, and I think there's as you're looking and thinking maybe you are on that path, or that you are an empath, one trait is you may take on other people's as your own. So it's a kind of the classic trait of being an empath, because no matter what someone else near you is feeling or experiencing, and even if they're not showing it, or especially if they're not showing it, you're likely to pick up on those emotions pretty much immediately. I mean, not just you notice it, but you feel it. As if you come across someone who is sad, suddenly you feel sad and you don't know why, or angry, and you're like, why am I so angry? There's nothing that should be angry. What's going on? It may be, you're picking up on some of their energies, and you may be an empath. Now, you may also be, picking up on just tiny micro expressions or body language that other people might be missing. So that's a thing as well. The next one is sometimes you experience sudden, overwhelming emotions when you're in public, and it's not just in a one-on-one conversation type of situation. It can happen anywhere, anytime when there's other people around without warning often. Because if you're an empath and you go into a public space like a grocery store, like we were just talking about, you may find yourself just filled with some sort of emotion that you don't know why it's there. It came from nowhere. And it's frustrating, and it's going to be kind of scary, and OMG. The next one would be the vibe of a room might matter to you, especially if you're in a new situation, might matter to you a lot. And you might actually feel the atmosphere or the energy in that particular area or your surroundings. That's why folks who are empathic often find museums very peaceful, or gardens, or floating on the lake, or something like that. It's very peaceful and calming and grounding. You may connect better to people and understand where they're coming from. And this is actually kind of a core trait of an empath. You get it. And because you're absorbing their energy and you understand what it is, even if they don't have the ability to express it completely. People might turn to you for advice. And it's not so much because you know all the answers, it's just because you tend to be a good listener. That is a great skill, actually. So often we forget to listen to hear what the other person is saying. We get so wrapped up in what are we going to say next, or what we have to say is more important, or oh my gosh, I got to say this before I forget it. That would be me. You're just a really good listener because you're able to sit there and focus on that person and soak up what they're saying, and you're like, I totally get what you're saying, and I understand how you feel. Now, one of the downsides is tragic or violent events, even on TV or in the movies, might completely incapacitate you. It doesn't have to be a horrible event, though, just keep in mind. And you're going to feel those emotions pretty much throughout all of you, not just like, oh, gut check, that really sucked. It can be just overwhelming, and you might not be someone who likes to watch the murder mysteries or some of those slasher films. Personally, I don't understand slasher films. I don't get it. They're not my thing. I don't like horror movies at all. Give me a good adventure any day. You can't contain your love of pets, animals, or babies. You might actually be one of those baby talking people. Maybe not. Just, it's a possibility. But you're going to gush, and you're going to be just like, oh, the puppy, I got to touch the puppy or cuddle the baby. It's a thing. And that's okay. You're just going to react and respond to those people differently. It's kind of you make you all gooey. You may actually feel other people's physical illnesses, not just their emotions. This is why I mentioned the medical field. I think, there's got to be some empathic ability for a lot of good nurses and doctors, because they can actually feel kind of what their patient is feeling and understand what their patient is feeling, perhaps more than others. And I think that's great. But this empathicness, it could be a little bit. That's why your significant other might have sympathy pains for during labor, or sympathy cravings, that kind of a thing. That happens. It's real, and it's not necessarily because they're an empath. They're just picking up on their partner that well. They've just got that strong of a connection. But that's what it's like. You can be overwhelmed in intimate relationships. Not just because relationships are challenging anyways, period, because they are. If you can sense the energy from the other person, every irritation or anger or any of that, love even, that what that other person is feeling can overwhelm you as the empath. So it can be hard, and if that's the case, and you're an empath, and whoever you're cohabitating with, has really strong emotions, you need to make sure you've got a good, safe, solid place that you can go to, whether mentally or physically, to kind of ground some of that negativity out, and ground yourself, center yourself, and so you can focus on not being overwhelmed. You may be a walking lie detector. Basically, if someone's telling a lie, as an empath, you can tell. It's not just their body language, but you can feel that falseness at all. It's just you can tell when someone's not being 100% honest with you or with themselves or the people around them. You don't understand why a leader wouldn't put their team or their people first. Because so often people in a leadership role, especially at work, don't always remember or pay attention to the needs of the people who work for them, or the people around them. So if you're an empath, it's not just rude, it's to you, it's just a total failure of leadership. And that's why, so many empaths make great leaders themselves, because they're still connected to the people who are working with them and for them. And you've got just that connection to the people that are helping you get your job done. It makes a stronger team. So if you have an empath on your team and you're not, and you're ignoring that, it'll make it harder for them personally to work with you. And that's just kind of what we have to deal with. Now, as an empath, you may have a calming effect on others, and you may have the power to heal them, actually. So just people do seek out empaths for advice, period. That's just what they do, because they feel more at peace in an empath's presence. And they often seek out their empathic friends if they're just having a hard time of things. And because you're actually listening and you're hearing what they have to say, you can help them work past some of that emotional baggage that they have and overcome some of those unhealthy thought patterns and behavior patterns. So if you can't hide and protect yourself with the sensitivity and the empathy, don't be afraid to embrace your gift and use it to help people and make a difference. Just, you do have to protect yourself, ground yourself out, absolutely. You cannot see someone in pain without wanting to help them in some way, shape, or form. So for me personally, if I see a panhandler on the street, often it is hard for me to not just walk up to them and help all of them. I don't have the resources for that. I just don't. I don't. But I wish I could. I really feel for them. I've been homeless myself in the past. It was quite the adventure. You learn some things about yourself, and you learn how to minimize yourself and what you have around you. So in that way, respect is pretty cleansing. But I get where these people are coming from when they're panhandling or they say they're homeless, that kind of a thing, out on the street. I get it. Not that I did that, but I understand why they might feel that's their only alternative. Empaths are often a target for energy vampires. And so an energy vampire is basically someone who just kind of sucks the energy out of you. And their fear or rage just saps your energy and your peace of mind. And they are often narcissistic and lack empathy and are only concerned with themselves. And so they make the people around them feel that they're unworthy or unlovable. And so they soak up and thrive on that negative energy and seeing you respond to it. And that's just, it's a thing, unfortunately. Empaths can become very replenished in nature. So the busyness of everyday life can just be overwhelming to those who are an empath. And so the natural world is generally something that nourishes you and restores you and helps you find your center and helps you ground out. So that could be green things like being in a park, or a forest or something like that, or it could be an ocean or a body of water. Like I've got a big, beautiful lake here. Very soothing and relaxing to be anywhere near the water, listening to the water, the little bitty waves we get here, come across the shore, the wind, just all of it. It's just soothing and peaceful. Just awesome. So, now it's often said that empaths are very intuitive people, and it's true often, but it's not always true. Not all empaths are intuitive, and not all intuitives possess empathy. And in our society today, those two words are generally linked or used interchangeably, even though they're not really the same thing. So empathy, generally speaking, is the ability to sense and feel emotions and energy of people and your surroundings. It's generally outward facing and concerned with things other than oneself. Intuition, on the other hand, generally involves turning inward and consulting your unconscious mind and your gut to assess and understand a situation. So it also relies upon absorbing and processing the world around you, but the final element, the translation of it, if you will, is very much internal. So there's an assumption that those who are highly empathetic, I think I said it, are as blessed with intuition is inaccurate, because that's just not true. They're just very distinct. So if you do have a high degree of intuition, and you are an empath also, I got 4 ways here to deal with things. So you can tell your difference between your feelings and those of others is kind of a big thing. Many musings, and I just want to mention this briefly. So if what you're feeling is you and or the next person, it's harder. So the energy that you absorb merges with your own and often pollutes your inner thoughts anyways. So you can't can't figure out what's theirs and what's not. So if you encounter an angry person, in other words, you're going to become more angry. Or an anxious person, you're going to feel more anxious, etc. An intuitive empath, on the other hand, are generally more in tune with their inner emotional state or inner state. And so they can tell the differences a little bit better between what is theirs and what is not. And so they're generally less influenced by the emotions of others, but they do recognize them. And they're better able at creating a barrier between themselves and those around them to protect themselves. The intuitive can actually go beyond feelings and you'll understand maybe a little bit better the reasons for them. So for a non-intuitive empath, it's often confusing. It's like, why am I so sad? I don't know why I'm so sad. I'm talking to you. You don't look sad. What's going on? But an intuitive person can take the step back from just that raw emotion and translate it and tune into it a little bit better and understand why it might be. Now, I missed a couple things here. So basically, just to sum it all up, empathy is the ability to read and understand people and be in tune with or resonate with others. Sometimes it's voluntary, other times it's involuntary, especially someone who is a natural empath. It can be a little harder for you. Empaths are generally hypersensitive and require a little bit more compassion than others might. And then you might share some of those common traits with other empaths. And, it's those... I think the social media world has been really good for those of us who are more likely to want to stay home and not be around other people physically. It gives us a safety place where we don't have to go out in public as much. And it's getting to the point where you can have your groceries delivered. It's just insane. And so it's important to know yourself. So ground yourself, learn more about yourself, do your research, like I've said repeatedly, and learn more about empathy. There's a lot of information out online. If you're part of social media, you can find some information there. Just some of it you're going to have to take with a grain of salt. If you're part of a group or a circle, coven, that kind of a thing, you know, you may get some real good information there, some direction, or a mentor or guide. I will be having my coffee meeting with Black Tree tomorrow at 3 p.m. At the Starbucks in Ponderay. You guys are more than welcome to join us. Just coffee and talk about pagan stuff. My website, or my Etsy page is www.etsy.com/shop/monarchmtnstudio. And if you have anything you want to email me, please do. It is wildpaisley@gmail.com. And that's WILDEPAISLEY@gmail.com. So I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. It's been fun learning about being an empath. It was a fun topic to research. A lot of great information. So merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. And holy cow, this hour went by fast. So I will see you next Friday, 9 p.m. right here on TFR or on YouTube. And y'all have a good night.